Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu was-salam ala Rasulillahi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Inshallah, today we will be continuing our topic on the life of Abu Bakr Siddiq radiyallahu an. We started talking about the Ridda wars last week. And I just want to pick it up from last week where we left off. When we talked about Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh, he he divided the army into 11 armies. And into 11 different armies. And he opened the front at different places at the same time. As you can see in this picture, there are many different fronts that he opened up, and we talked about previous week also that the number of armies that were sent were at different locations under the leadership of different Sahaba from the of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And these were the 11 different armies that we talked about last week. And I just want to leave it here that this is how he started off the wars against the people who did the apostasy. And one point to make it here was, as you can see from the map as well, most of the Arabian Peninsula actually they rebelled against the Islamic State at that time. And Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh, he took a very firm stance against them. And he opened the war against all of them at the same time, while he also started fighting against the Byzantines as well. Now that there's a lesson for us as Muslims here. Today we are 55 plus statelets, if you want to call them, and on a much bigger area they are spread over the world, and we're not able to take care of any of the issues that are happening in the Muslim Ummah nowadays, whether it's Kashmir, whether it's Palestine, whether it's Yemen, Syria, and the list goes on and on and on. And we can continue just to keep counting these numbers, and the number of Muslims or people in general, they're getting killed. And we have incompetent states which are not doing anything to protect the Muslim Ummah. While here we see that Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh, under the flag of La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, was able to fight so many different enemies at the same time, while today we find there are 55 plus Muslim countries, and they are not able to even take care of one issue. So even if you can flip the picture, they are not able to do that. Here, Abu Bakr is taking care of many different open battles and wars at the same time. And that's because of they were fighting under the flag of La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. Today we are divided into 55 plus different nations which are based on tribes or nations, or these flags represent patriotism and nationalism and different kinds of isms, but Islam, and hence we are being ridiculed all around the world. So there's a lesson here that inshallah we should remember that out of these Ridda wars that we're talking about during the time of Abu Bakr Siddiq, and even later on the rest of the Khulafa Rashidin lives, and the Khulafa came afterwards. So that's all we want to show. And now going back to go into a little bit of detail of these wars that happened in the time of Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh. So starting with to understand that, first of all the armies were controlled from the area close to Medina, which is called Dhil Qissa. And Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh, even though he did not himself go to fight against these apostates, as we talked about last week, that he was actually asked by the Sahaba to stay in Medina. But even though he was not part of those armies directly, but he was very well informed about all those armies that he sent. And all those 11 armies were not sent only for 11 locations, rather each one fought at two or more than two different locations, either alone or with the help of the other armies were coming and helping them out. So they were very well organized, well structured, and Abu Bakr was well aware of where each army was, and he was involved in every move that they were making. And also, he had very fast messengers who were going back and forth between different locations and bringing the news back to Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu an, and he was sending the messages back to the leaders of the army. Abu Bakr, even though he was the, if you want to call him the chief of the chief commander, chief of all the Muslim, the Khalifatul Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he was leading all the armies. But when it comes to the army operations, the overall commander was Khalid bin Walid, even though Khalid bin Walid had his own battalion or army, if you want to call it. But as an overall strategist, it was Khalid bin Walid radiallahu anhu, to whom Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam called him Sayfullah, the sword of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we are well aware of the skills of Khalid bin Walid. But besides Khalid bin Walid, even the rest of the other 10 leaders of the armies that Abu Bakr appointed, they were groomed by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They were the Ashabu Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They were very well aware of what they were involved in and what was expected of them, and they were all fighting under the banner of Tawheed, of La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, and the tawakkul of Allah Azza wa Jal, the trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, was the key thing that existed among them. And Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh did not just go for only send the armies and to fight with these people. Rather, he also did try to do the diplomatic actions at the same time, but not just the diplomacy and continue to do the diplomacy and they were rebelling against the state at that time. Rather, he tried to do the diplomacy. He prepared the army, sent the armies also, and also send the letters to in different fronts. A letter to the people who were leading the apostasies in different tribes and different locations, and to general people, as well as to the leaders of the armies that Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh sent. And the purpose was, so through those letters, actually, Abu Bakr wanted to make sure that people do get the message across, a message about Islam again, and they are making the right choice, whether they come back into the fold of Islam, and if they don't come back to Islam, they also understand what are the consequences of that as well. So it was not just come back to Islam, because see, there's a difference here. We're not talking about taking Islam to the non-Muslims anymore. Here we are talking about the ones who were Muslims and they rebelled against the state. So they were the rebellious, they were the rebels that the state had to take care of them. And this is what Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh was doing. And the letter that he sent, it's a bit of a long letter. I tried to read some part of it, not the whole thing, because it will take quite long just to read through the letter. And if somebody is interested, the letter of Abu Bakr is available in many sites. I would suggest you can get it from As-Salabi's book, which is about the life of Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh. But anyways, he started first. He sent the letters to the leaders and the general people, and he did not try to. He did not waste time, because there are too many of the people who apostated, many tribes, many regions, most of the Arabian Peninsula, as a matter of fact. So he did not make letters specific to each tribe or each location. Rather, he made one generic letter that was for all. And the same letter was sent for all of them. And the letter was started off with that this letter is started with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and that this letter is from Abu Bakr Siddiq, the Khalifa of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the letter was like this: it is for all whom this letter may reach. It is a letter that is intended equally for leaders and the general population of people, for those who have remained steadfast upon Islam, as well as those who have turned back from it. Peace, and it goes like this: peace be upon who follow true guidance, and who, after having been guided, have not returned to misguidance and blindness. For indeed I say to you that all praise is for Allah, and none but Him has the right to be worshipped. I bear witness, none has the right to be worshipped by Allah alone, and he has no partners, and I bear witness Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his slave and messenger. And then he went on and continue on about the some of the basic teachings of Islam to remind them what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intended from us. And also because all these things, apostasy, uh, actually started in the life of Rasulullah to some of the to a certain extent, very small areas, but after Abu Bakr, the rebelliousness increased. So hence he reminded them about the role of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as well. And he reminded him that لِيُنذِرَ مَنْ كَانَ حَيًّا وَيُحَقُّ الْقَوْلَ عَلَى الْكَافِرِينَ, that he may give warning to him who is living, and the one who, and that word may be justified against the disbelievers. And then he continued on and talking to them about the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was only a prophet. As he gave the khutbah after he passed away to remind them about the death of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is not the end of Islam or end of Allah Azza wa Jal. Na'udhu billah. He said, وَمَا مُحَمَّدٌ إلا رسول قد خلت من قبله الرسل أفإن مات أو قتل انقلبتم على أعقابكم ومن ينقلب على عقبيه فلن يضر الله شيئا فسيجزي الله الشاكرين. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us here about that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is no more than a messenger. Indeed, many messengers have passed away before him. If he dies or he's killed, when will you then turn back on your heels as disbelievers? And if he who turns back on his heels, not the least harm will do to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah will give reward to those who are grateful. So Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu, he reminded these people who were rebelling against the state after the death of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a human being. He was a human being, and he passed away like many other prophets passed away. As he also mentioned, the ayah says, وَمَا جَعَلْنَا لِبَشَرٍ مِّن قَبْلِكَ الْخُلْدَ أَفَإِن مِتَّ فَهُمُ الْخَالِدُونَ. And we granted not to any human being immortality before you, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then if you die, would they live forever? And in another place Allah says, إِنَّكَ مَيِّتٌ فَإِنَّهُمْ مَيِّتُونَ. Verily you, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, will die, and verily they will die too. So that's the reality, that he wanted the people to sense it and come back, if in case they're thinking of, because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has passed away, now they had the right to leave Islam, because Islam continued to be there. So that after basic reminders regarding Islam and coming back to Islam, he gave them basically the options regarding what they can do, and if they don't come back into fold of Islam, then they will be fighting against the Muslim army. Now, the two main points that he mentioned in the letter, as I did not go through the whole letter, it's much longer. Just want to remind the listeners that the main 2 points that he mentioned was the reasons why the apostates were being asked to return to Islam. So he reminded them why they should come back to Islam. Second, the punishment that would be meted out to the apostates if they did not return to Islam. So that was very clear. He was very firm and clear about that, not giving different kinds of excuses to them, or we did not understand the message. No, the message was very clear to the people who were not who were rebelling against the state at that time. And some of the points that he mentions, those were the 2 points. And underlying points which are important to remember was, first of all, this letter was intended for all the people in the Arabian Peninsula, whether they were Muslims, whether now they have apostated, whether they were regular general people, or whether they were leaders. So the letters were for all. And then the letter was very clear about the message of Islam. The Aqidah of Islam was presented to them again, so they understand that what Islam was about, and reminded them about Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam also, that he was a human being. Just because Rasulullah passed away does not mean that we should leave Islam. That's what he was reminding them, as he reminded the Muslims and the Sahaba in general when Rasulullah passed away from this dunya. And he reminded them that whosoever for example, worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They should remember that Allah is alive and he's there forever. And whoever worship Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he should know that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has died. So main idea was to remind them of that messengers have come in the past, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the final messenger. He was the best creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but he also passed away from this dunya. Okay, and then he also reminded them that he is sending the best of the Muslims after them, the one from the Muhajirin, the one from the Ansar, and one who followed the goodness. These are the one who will be fighting against them, the one who are rebelling against the state. Okay, and the rules that he presented about the people who will be fighting, meaning they will be, if they fight against and they do not come back into fold of Islam and they continue to rebel against the state, then they will be fought, and then their spoils or whatever remains they will leave, they will be taken as the spoils of war that was taken against any other wars against any other non-Muslims as well. Okay, so he continued on about this again, and another option, another main thing he pointed out was that which was in another letter that he sent to the commanders of the army. So the one letter was for the general people and the general people and the leaders of the apostates, and one letter that was sent to all the commanders of the armies also. And to them, he gave very clear instructions. And one of the key instruction was, which is different than in normal battles, because in the normal battles, if you are fighting against, for example, against the mushrikeen, then in those cases you can make the truce, and you can come back and you don't have to continue to fight. If they pay jizya and stuff like that, then you don't have to fight. But in this case, this battle had to go on. Either they come back to the fold of Islam, or they will fight until they die. This is how it was framed for the letter was for the leaders of the armies as well. Okay, and they were commanded to offer them Islam first, and if they don't accept Islam, then that was the case in those battles or the wars. Okay, other point to remember here was if these rebels embraced Islam after beginning of fighting, then the Muslim commander were to go from fighting to making peace and teaching the members of the opposing army about the fundamentals of Islam. So even if they start fighting but they come back, then they should come back to Islam, and they should be taught about Islam. Now, Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh also stressed something that was equally important in this letter. If the apostles refuse to return to Islam, even after continuing warning, I think I talked about this point, that then you continue to fight until death. Every Muslim commander followed Abu Bakr's instructions to the letter, that is to say that none of them hastened to do battle before inviting the enemies to the truth. So they all invite them towards Islam first, and then the wars started. Now, Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh actually proved his leadership very effectively in all these battles that happened in the Ridda wars, because he was very successful commander, and he commanded the army in one of the most difficult situations the Muslims were in. And but that came because of Abu Bakr was trained under the best leader, which was Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he was a regular fighter under the leadership of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he also led when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent armies to fight against different tribes. So he was very well skilled and well taught by Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that's why his military strategies against the apostates, against the rebels, was very successful. Okay, now when it comes to the going back to the letters that he sent to the commanders, other thing that he reminded them was, he mentioned that inna Allaha ma'al ladina taqu wal ladina hum muhsinun, that truly Allah is with those who fear him, keep the duty to him, and those who are muhsinun, meaning reminding them, taking them back to the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So even when you are going for any of these causes, that remember that this is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the sincerity and the hard work that we put for any of those causes, that is only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nothing else. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لِنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ مَعَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. And for those who strive hard, the one who do the jihad in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we will surely guide them to our paths, which is the path of Islam, of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And very Allah is with the muhsineen, the good doers. Okay. So that's about the letter. Now, to go into the apostates, the rebels' war, and against the murtadeen. Remember when we talked about these rebels and the apostates, we talked about there were different categories of people who apostated. Some of them, they completely left Islam. They went back to Jahiliyyah. Some of them, they went or they started following some of the false prophets we talked about, Musaylama Kadhab, for example, or Al-Aswad al-Ansi, Tulayha, and Saja. So these are the people who started calling themselves as the prophets. And Al-Aswad al-Ansi, actually, and Musaylama Kadhab, they actually called themselves as prophets in the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But Al-Aswad al-Ansi, he claimed to be the false prophet. Prior to he claimed to be a false prophet, he already, among his very close people, he started spreading that he is false, he's a prophet. And he did not reject Rasulullah outrightly, but at the same time, he called himself as a prophet as well. And when he openly came out, even his own people were surprised, because they were not aware of this, that this is what he's cooking. But he was talking to very close people. When he came out openly, it was still when Rasulullah was in this world, and it happened right after he claimed his false prophet, right after Rasulullah became sick after performing the Hajj, which was a few days before Rasulullah passed away. But when he did this, before I talk about that, Al-Aswad al-Ansi, actually, his name was not Al-Aswad al-Ansi. His name was actually his name was Abhala ibn Ka'b, and he used to be referred as Bidhi al-Khimar, or which means the one with the khimar. He used to keep his face covered all the time with the khimar, and he was, because he was very dark skinned, that's why he was called Al-Aswad, and Al-Ansi because he was from the clan Al-Ans. And he was also used to be referred as Rahmanul Yemen, merciful of the Yemen. Like Musaylama Kadhab, he used to call himself as Rahmanul Yamama, the merciful of the Yamama. Or Rasulullah, he called them actually Al-Kadhab, the liar. But in the case of Al-Aswad, just want to bring up that few things before actually the time of Abu Bakr Siddiq, so we have a picture of it, what he did. So what he did was, he first of all, he started taking over the Sana'a. Sana'a was the area that was actually, which is part of the Yemen, and he started fighting. And because his own clan and the tribe that he was from, which is Midhaj, they actually did go after. They became they started following his religion, and now when he got the strength, so he started torturing the Muslims, and he was forcing them to leave Islam, meaning accept him as a prophet. And he started torturing them, ridiculing them, and actually killed them also, many of them. Now, one of them, the story of the famous one, one of the famous one was, there was a Sahabi named Al-Nu'man, and he actually killed him. He took a sword himself, and he cut them into pieces. But he did not leave Islam, and he was martyred by Al-Aswad. Now, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he actually started calling the people who were in the neighboring areas. And the Sahaba that he called upon in the neighboring areas also, Rasulullah sent a letter to organize a war against Al-Aswad al-Ansi, because he has killed many of the Muslims and tortured many Muslims in Yemen. So now Rasulullah, the letters that he sent to, all those Sahaba that he sent the letters to, even after the whole apostasy and rebelliousness started in the Arabian Peninsula, these were the ones who stayed on the deen firmly. They never joined any of the apostates. So now when they gathered and they were going to fight against Al-Aswad al-Ansi, so they had two options: go full-fledged war against him, and the Muslims had enough army that they could have taken him down. But they decided that rather than going on the war and many casualties would happen, they thought of it, a better way would be just to take out Al-Aswad al-Ansi. And for that, his wife actually was one of the people who helped the Muslims, because his wife, Azad al-Farisiya, who was radiallahu anha, her husband actually was killed by Al-Aswad al-Ansi, and then he forced her to marry him. And when she found out about what Al-Aswad was calling for now, and the Muslims were there to assassinate, so she is the one who helped the Muslims, and she opened up. She actually opened the path for the Muslims in a manner that they were able to attack Al-Aswad al-Ansi in his bedroom. And the one who killed Al-Aswad al-Ansi was Fairuz. And when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he actually found the news about from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the wahi about the killing of Al-Aswad al-Ansi, and he said to the Sahaba that al-Ansi was killed last night. And then he also said very specifically, the one who killed him was a blessed man from a blessed family or the household. So someone asked him, who is he? And Rasulullah says, Fairuz. Fairuz has achieved success. He's the one who is the successful one. So that's about the Fairuz, the one who killed Al-Aswad al-Ansi. And after he was killed, Fairuz and the others who were with him, they took the head of Al-Aswad out and threw him in front of people. And people, the one who were the followers in general, they dispersed. And now the Muslims got the control of the As-Sana again back under the Muslim control. Now, for the short period of time, the governor of the Sana'a was not one person. As a matter of fact, it was divided among three different people, and there was Fairuz, and the other name was Dawiye and Qais bin Makshuh. Now, and until Mu'adh bin Jabal radiallahu anhu arrived in Sana'a, the one who was the appointed governor. So until Mu'adh bin Jabal came, they were the one who were taking care of the jobs of the governor in a manner that the work was divided among them. Now Mu'adh came and he became the governor, and then he started teaching the people about Islam. Now when Mu'adh was teaching, and they heard the news over there about the passing away of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that was very short period of time. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed away now. And now when Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh, when he became the Khalifa right after Rasulullah passed away, we talked about that in the previous talks. He appointed actually Fairuz as the governor of Sana'a. Now when Fairuz was made the governor of the Sana'a, that was actually for Qais bin Makshuh, that was not something that he liked. See, Qais bin Makshuh was one of the leaders under Al-Aswad al-Ansi. When he saw that it was going in the favor of the Muslims, he went along with the Muslims. Now, when he saw that Fairuz was made as the governor, he did not like it, and he wanted to have this share also. Now Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh, he did not appoint Qais as the governor because of multiple reasons, and one of them was he did not want to take the risk again, because he was from the people who were apostates also at one point. So now Abu Bakr, he appointed Feroz as the governor, but he appointed Qais and Dagaway and Jashi as the helpers for the Feroz. But Qais, he did not like it, and one of the reasons he did not like was because of the asabiya and the nationalistic kind of ideas he is still in him. Because Feroz was from one of those people who was referred as al-abna. Abna is referred as those people whose father is from the Faris, for example, but they married to an Arab woman, and the children who came out of that kind of marriage, they used to call them Abna. So, but they refer to them as, okay, these are Ajam. So Feroz was referred as Ajam by the Qais, and he was actually inciting the people to say that how come these Abna or these Ajam can come and rule over us. So he was inciting Asabiya among them. And to do so, not only he did this, but also he was able to kill he was able to kill Dagaway. Dagaway was another helper of the Pharaohs, and when Sana'a was captured back from Aswad al-Ansi, he was one of the caretakers besides Feroz and Qais. So he killed them. So now when he killed them, Feroz realized that the situation is not good. So he actually fled away from Sana'a, and he sought refuge with his uncle in Khawlan. Now Qais, in the meantime, he started gathering the other tribal leaders, because he still had the leadership position, and he started gathering all the leaders. And not only that, but also the remains of Al-Aswad al-Ansi's followers to fight against, basically, against the Pharaohs and against the Muslims now again. So Qais started this, and now Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh, instead of sending the armies from Medina all the way, he actually tried to get the other tribes which are still stayed with Islam around the Sana'a, and to gather the army to fight against Qais. And because Feroz is the one who sent the letter to Abu Bakr to inform him what the situation was. So now Abu Bakr had no choice, but he had to get the help from those people. And he also called upon those leaders that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam wrote the letters to during his time when Al-Aswad was alive, and he claimed the false prophethood. And these people were still on Islam. They are the one on the firm Islam, and they reply back to the call of Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh. And they were able to take care of this rebelliousness that is started again by Qais, by gathering all the followers of Al-Aswad al-Ansi as well. Now, similarly, like this one, there were some other apostates uprising that took place in Tihama as well. And that was taken care by the invading Muslim army from Medina, not by the Medina, but by the local militia that was made up by the Muslims inhabitants of Tihama. So two of the main leaders of that militia was Masruq al-Aki radiallahu anh, who led a group of fighters from Al-Ak tribe, and At-Tahir ibn Abi Hala, who Rasulullah appointed as the governor of a district of Tihama. So they are the one who took care of this uprising that happened. And as for the rebels of Bajila tribe, Abu Bakr ordered Jarir bin Abdullah radiallahu anh, and he was from the Bajila tribe, who became Muslim in the 10th year of the Hijrah, to gather those members who in the tribe will remain on Islam, and they were able to take care of this uprising as well. And some members of Banu Harith ibn Ka'ab tribe in Najran were followers of Al-Aswad al-Ansi, and upon the death of Rasulullah, they continued to waver in their faith. As a result, Masruq al-Aki went to them intending to battle with them, but he invited them to Islam, and they came back without fighting. So these were the some of the Ridda wars that happened during the time of Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh, and he was able to take care of them. And we will talk about the rest of the at least the main battles that happened in the Ridda wars in the next 2 weeks or so, inshallah.